Hey folks, welcome to verifiedinvesting.com. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here. In today's video, we're going to delve into the chart analysis on the big semiconductor stocks. AMD announcing today a partnership with OpenAI. We'll get into that and how shady that is. But nonetheless, these are the charts. We're going to dissect the levels, find the forecast levels for upside potential or downside risk. All right, let's dive right in here, folks, as we always do. This is your chart of AMD, and this was a beautiful thing. If you tune into my morning show on Verified Investing on YouTube, I talked about a short this morning on AMD at double top. This is classic technical analysis. Very clearly, you can see the high going back here. This was the former all-time high on AMD. And today, where did it open? Right into that level. And that was a short. Look at this. The price just diving to the downside. Now, listen, AMD is still up 27%, but on a technical analysis basis, this was a phenomenal short. We taught it in the live day trading room, the trading room that I run where I do day trading in there. And again, this was just a beautiful setup for a short. And you can see that, again, not only did it open right at that level, but even pre-market, it actually pierced that level right here. So again, you can see it got up there, and then look at the nosedive here. This is the pre-market action, by the way, where the deal was announced. But then look at the dive. This is what I caught to the downside right here. And then it came down a little bit more, and it's basically just gone sideways the rest of the day. But ultimately, I want to go back and discuss a couple things here. So number one, this OpenAI deal with AMD. It's a little bit suspicious, much like Nvidia a few weeks ago announcing a $100 billion investment into OpenAI, which then they turned around and basically said, okay, OpenAI will use that money to buy Nvidia chips. Kind of, robbing Peter to pay Paul, if you will, as the old adage goes. But take a look at this, guys. This was the deal here. You can see that AMD will get $100 billion in the next 4 years in terms of revenue from OpenAI, but OpenAI gets warrants for up to 160 million, I repeat, million shares of AMD. And so basically, they can convert those warrants and use the money. And by the way, they're getting it for a penny a share. AMD right now is trading at $210 a share. They're getting these warrants at a penny per share. So that's all instant profit. Don't we all wish we could get this deal? But the point being is that they're taking those warrants. They can then convert those, sell those shares, and use that to pay AMD the $100 million that essentially this deal is. I mean, it is honestly unbelievable that this flies, but really it seems like anything flies in this day and age. All right, let's get back into the charts here. We're going to go to Nvidia. Nvidia continues to hover within a wedge pattern. This is a classic wedge pattern. Look at this beautiful trend line here going back to 2021. This was your bull market high. Here's your secondary high here in 2024. Kisses it right here, but look, tags it right there. Really, it tags it right again here. In fact, let me throw another arrow there because I love pointing out where it tags it. And then we just recently tagged this level. Now, you can see NVIDIA is down today a little bit. Why is NVIDIA down when AMD is up? So part of this is money rotation, but a bigger part is that up until this point, NVIDIA was the main supplier to OpenAI. OpenAI is showing that it's diversifying. It also shows that AMD chips must be on par with NVIDIA chips, or OpenAI would not be doing this, right? So again, this is all kind of signs that there's more competition for NVIDIA. Now, NVIDIA is only down 0.5% today. That's not a big move, but that's why it's down, while a lot of other semiconductors are rallying today on the back of this deal. Now, on a technical analysis basis, very simple here, folks. This is your upside resistance right in here, right around the 191 level. Your downside support is right here around 180. Watch to see which range breaks. If we break to the upside, you're easily going above $200 per share on NVIDIA. If you break and confirm below 180, now there's trouble. This would be a trend line that has denoted the uptrend since the April Liberation Day and subsequent sell-off lows. If we were to confirm below that, that would be very problematic for NVIDIA, and you would expect a bigger dip. My guess is at least 164, maybe even a retrace to the 153 level here, the former highs from December of 2024. All right, flipping over to Broadcom. Now, Broadcom's an interesting one here, folks, because what we're seeing on Broadcom is this obvious trend line, which is very similar to NVIDIA, right? And Broadcom, by the way, is flat on the day, so it's not really reaping any reward from the AMD OpenAI move as well. But the point here is very simple. For me as a technician, a chartist, all I care about is this, right? As long as you're above this level, this could go, I mean, this could really continue to rally to the upside. But if this line breaks and we confirm below it, and that's right around 327, then that's when the floodgates will start to open and you're likely to see a much bigger correction in Broadcom. Now, remember, Broadcom's market cap is 1.6 trillion. Nvidia's is 4.5 trillion. I mean, so the combination, right, of these two companies is $6 trillion in market cap. It's incredible, folks. Incredible. All right, let's go to a couple others here that are making moves. What are we looking for on this chart? Well, first and foremost, look at that doji. All right, so when you get a candle like this at the highs of a chart where it has a tail on top and a tail on the bottom, that's called a doji. Now, a doji, my friends, is not as good as a topping tail. Topping tails are great reversal indicators. We just got one on the S&P on Friday. And notice today we are not taking out those highs on the S&P at this point. So far, that bearish indicator on the S&P is holding up. But this, my friends, is, again, a doji, which is a bearish signal of a potential top. Now, Micron has had an incredible run here, just absolutely incredible run. But this is starting to tell me that the sellers, and that's what's really going on here, just to explain a doji, right? So initially there were buyers that pushed it. Well, really sellers pushed it down. Buyers pushed it up here. Now sellers, like basically this is telling me there's a stalemate, right? So if we look at this right here, right? So we have an arrow there and then same thing right here, right? So they're battling. The buyers are meeting the sellers and price is staying equal. And that's telling you this is the first time in recent history at these highs where you're starting to see sellers emerge that are equaling the buyers, right? And really, you had a couple pullbacks here, right? But no doji formations. This is very a specific formation on the daily candle that would get my attention. But also to add to that, take a look at this, guys. This is very, very interesting here. So if we look at the charts, we can look and see that, oh, look at this. There's a trend line that essentially connects the recent highs on, or this uptrend on Micron that we tagged at the high today. And that's something that gets my attention. There's no doubt about it. That would also lead me to believe that we're kind of due for a pullback in Micron. Now, where could Micron go if it does pull back? Well, you're going to have a couple pivot points like 170 right here. Then you'll have some levels here around 156. But I would use the same metrics that we've been using for the other stocks like Nvidia and Broadcom. In other words, look at how beautiful this trend line is. Now, this shows a lot of downside potential. And in all fairness, it can't be surprising. Remember, the beta or the volatility on Micron is way higher than Nvidia and Broadcom. And so it makes sense that if Broadcom and Nvidia, let's say, pull back 10%, you could see a 20, 30% correction on Micron. And what we look here and see is look at the beauty of this area here. Pivot low, pivot low, pivot low, and pivot low. And so what this clearly tells me from a chartist perspective is that while you will have some supports here, maybe a little bounce, then down to here, a little bit of bounce, but eventually we likely fall into this area here, and that would be your first major support. That would be if you're short this, and I am short with members of Smart Money stocks and ETFs. We were basically break even up here. We shorted some Friday, and then I think it was then, and then it added again to today. So our average is really right here. But this is exactly what I'm looking for as a downside target. Now, what's interesting about this level, we always look for confluence. Remember, confluence is very, very important when you're trading. And when you have confluence of a level here, what you're looking for is another factor that's right at that point. And lo and behold, look at right at that same area, pivot high and pivot high. This would be an obvious area where I'd actually want to buy Micron. So in other words, if Micron collapses to the 130-ish area, I am a buyer because you have two factors of major technical support right there. Last one, Taiwan Semi, which is about a $1.4 trillion name. It just keeps going up here, folks. The only thing I see on this, I mean, there's a pretty clear kind of upsloping general trend here. You can see piercing here down to this area. Very similar to what Micron had. Again, so you did hit some. What I'd be watching here, folks, is do we pull back to about the 300 level today? And if you do, and by the way, it's trading at 303, so that would only be a $3 drop in today's end, you would get a daily topping tail. And daily topping tails are major bearish reversal signals, much better than dojis, and you'd start to expect a downdraft. And then just the same, I'm going to use my same trend line that I've been using for all of these of where this could pull back to. And the answer is you'd be looking for this area here around 256, maybe 250. right in that same vicinity, right around 250, is also this consolidation zone right here as well. And there's also a gap fill right there. Wow, that's a huge, huge area. If it were to pull back here, absolutely, I'd be a buyer right in that vicinity around the 250 level. But let's watch today to see, do we get a topping tail on Taiwan Semi? If we do, I think it's game on for this to the downside. Let's keep an eye on AMD. Again, AMD continues to roll over a little bit in the day. You can see, again, the beautiful double top. Nvidia remains down about 0.6% now, a $1.10, and Broadcom is also flat on the day. Micron still up a little bit, but showing a very crystal clear doji on the charts. All right, guys, I wanted to give you an update on everything going on in the semiconductor sector here. Amazing stuff, amazing news, although, again, a little bit on the weird, shady side, in my humble opinion, how this keeps happening, where it's basically, again, one company gives money or invests a ton of money into this company, then company B takes that money and just buys product from company A. Listen, it is what it is at this point. It is what it is, and we'll just trade it based on the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.